Yeah, the arts appreciation dog is in attendance. She may applaud during applause.
Ladies and gentlemen, the Bayeux Tapestry. There are lots of creatures in the margins of the Bayeux Tapestry. There are various types of birds and animals, and they interfere with the action that's going on in the main part of the story. Sometimes they appear to be supporting William in his conquest for the Norman throne. Sometimes they appear to be making snarky digs at Harold. Other times they are just going about their business, completely ignoring the battle of nations that is happening in between them. Early on in the tapestry, down in the bottom margin, there are a couple of farmers. One is leading his plough and the other one is scattering seed out across the linen landscape. And if you listen very, very carefully, you might be able to hear them singing. There were 3 men came out of the west, their fortune to find. And these 3 men made a solemn vow, John Barleycorn must die. They've ploughed, they've sown, they've harrowed him in, thrown clods upon his head. And these 3 men made a solemn vow, John Barleycorn was dead. Cut! A hawk has landed on the newly turned field. Get away with you, said the farmers. Get away from our seeds. And the hawk flies up into the air. And it flutters along and it looks for a new place to land. It scans several metres of tapestry along the yellowing edge of it until it spots the perfect place. The new church at Westminster. Lots of things are going on up here today. It can see a funeral procession running along the streets. King Edward has died. And so, with many weeping women, and the beating of drums and the sound of pipes, and King Harold pressing his suit, the body is carried along the narrow streets to the church. The workmen have only just finished this church. They're still fixing the weather vane to the top, and the hawk has to dodge out of the way to get out of the way of the huge chicken that's on top of it. And so, King Edward, protector of the realm, King of England, son of Ethelred, exchanges his temporal kingdom for an eternal one. King Harold, meanwhile, has lost no time at all. 30 centimetres along, there he is on the throne with his sceptre and his crown perched precariously on his head. And he whistles, and his hawk comes to him and sits on his arm. But the hawk has seen other things while it was on the roof. A red comet has been smeared across the sky above Harold's head. And the people outside are getting very nervous. What's that in the sky? Is it a fire drake? Is it a falling star? The sky is falling. The sky is unravelling. And across the sea, a flotilla of ghostly ships follow the comet's path all the way to Normandy, where King William, Duke William, is waiting to hear whether Harold is going to honour the oath he allegedly made, that he will give William the English throne. He doesn't have to wait long. Back in England, Harold summons his messenger. Go to Duke William and tell him that I desire he will not remind me of my oath or of my covenant. If I ever swore anything to him, if I ever promised him anything, I did it for my liberty. Besides, my will is not my own. I couldn't go against the rule of my people. The messenger gets into the fastest ship he can and hurries across to Normandy, where he bows in front of William. He says no. William, a short, stocky, angry little man, is furious. Shipwrights! And so it begins. The shipwrights descend, and all of Normandy is threatened to be deforested with a huge cutting of trees that's going on. And messengers are sent to the Pope and asking his blessing for an invasion on England. And messengers are sent to all the allies in France for allegiance, for men, for trees, for wood, for provisions. Harold, meanwhile, is feeling a bit anxious. He sends some of his men off to the south coast to guard it and keep an eye out for any Norman ships. And Harold paces his halls of power and jumps when anyone talks to him, and defends his throne to anyone who will still listen. He has this growing feeling of being stitched up. Meanwhile, the hawk, perched on Harold's roof, can see across the winding woven woolen sea, and see what's going on in the Norman side. These huge ships have been hauled down to the beach, and they're being loaded with hundreds of provisions: iron, chainmail, shields, swords, spears, arrows, everything. Food, provisions, wine. So much wine, actually. I mean, they're not really going to be able to even invade the Isle of Wight if they drink all of that. Harold, however, is still looking at the coast. He can't see anything. All is well so far. And all is well because the Normans have filled their ships with all of this gear and settled down to get on their journey, and the wind's the wrong way. They wait. For 6.5 weeks, they wait. After the first week, they're a bit bored and fed up. After the second week, they're looking for a fight. After the third week, they start talking about going home, and William is not impressed. Do you think I have control over the weather? Harold, however, has got even bigger problems to worry about. A group of hairy Norsemen have landed on the northern coast and are threatening to come south. He now has a problem. He's got William on one side with his ships waiting for the wind to change. He's got the Norsemen already starting to pillage in his northern counties. So he has no choice. He has to take his men away from the coast and go and sort them out. Of course, unlucky Harold, the wind changes at this precise moment, and all of the Normans and French pack into their ships, which are really beautiful, actually. They're sort of dragon-headed ships with lovely stripes along the side. I mean, they had time to do beautiful paint jobs on them during these 6 weeks they were waiting around. And they go across the worsted sea to England, where they land with a soft thump at Pevensey. Once they get there, William talked to his troops. "Sailors, make ready. Soldiers, disembark. The Oathbreaker will be expecting us." But of course, he isn't. They land. There's the beach. There are some fields. There are 2 kind of rough-looking sheep, but apart from that, there's no army, no glorious battle. It's all a bit embarrassing. So the Normans do what Normans have done ever since, and have got this wonderful reputation. They have a nice bite to eat instead. So they have a huge feast. They pillage food from the nearby towns, sit down and have something to eat. In between courses, they also find time to build a castle at Hastings. Now, I know what you're thinking. Castles, they're quite big, aren't they? They take quite a lot of time to build. Well, this is kind of a special castle. It's like early IKEA. It's a prefab castle, and it's been transported in sections on all these hundreds of ships. "There's a bolt missing here, sir." While the Normans are busy looking for bolts and nuts and all the things they left back in Normandy, Harold has had a rather good victory at Stamford Bridge. "My loyal foot soldiers, in days to come the poets will tell how King Harold, protector of this realm, ring-giver to men, has fought with his loyal thanes and given hell to the heathen ones." The messengers just appeared. Something's happened in the south, hasn't it? While Harold and his men walk as quickly as they possibly can all the way back to London, and then back towards Hastings, William and his men have finished their meal and start looking around for some trouble. Pillage houses, burn crops, burn barns, make sure none of the English dare to stand against us. And as the Normans move through the landscape, causing havoc, the beasts of battle start to gather in the tapestry margins. The cruel-beaked eagle, the ravenous wolf, the black-winged raven. alarmed birds, frightened women, burning houses, a mother and child running for their lives into the dark. Horse flees, fox hunts goose, hawk hunts rabbit, animals, people, chaos, upside down in the margins, holding their stitched breath, waiting. Until at last, the two armies are approximately 30 centimetres of linen apart, facing each other. William rides out amongst his army, encouraging them. Loyal men of Normandy and France, prepare yourselves manfully and wisely for the fight against the English oath-breakers. Harold, meanwhile, is riding amongst his troops, his poor, exhausted troops, filthy with mud. Some of them have blisters that have been mashing their toes into their boots since London. Men of England, you have already proven your mettle at Stamford Bridge. I now ask you to raise your ire once again and pay William the debts that we owe him. Pay him in iron and pay him in arrows. And then Harold lets his loyal hawk go up into the sky, and the hawk flies over the two armies as they face each other, the Normans and French and the Anglo-Saxons, both poised. Nothing happens. Until then, the archers draw their bows, and a hail of arrows, wasp-like, fly into the sky. The French cavalry advance. Their horses' sides are already thick with sweat. A man comes towards William, trying to stumble towards him, and he is pierced straight through from the neck to the belt with a spear. Somewhere in that early chaos, Harold's brothers, Lefwin and Gert, are killed. Harold doesn't see where his brothers fell. The cavalry advance, and as spear and shield come together, the sickening sound of crunching bones and severed limbs and stumbling horses fills the air. And yet, it's a curiously bloodless battle. As the Normans and Saxons fall side to side in the margins, they look very similar, pretty much the same. You can't tell them apart. A false report. Duke William has fallen. The Duke is dead. Retreat, retreat, means that the Normans start to flee and gives the Anglo-Saxons hope, and they rush out into the open, leaving their safe place between Berg and Holt. However, they are mistaken. The Duke is still alive. Keep fighting, you fools! Keep fighting, I'm here! And the Saxons regret their mistake as the two armies crash together once more. For 6 hours, the battle rages. 6 long hours. And the Bishop Odo, the Norman bishop, rides amongst the Norman men, encouraging the lads as they're seeing their friends fall into the dirt. Keep fighting for good and for glory. A second wave of archers, small in stature, resolute, release a second flock of deadly birds into the sky. A single arrow.
And here he says.
A single arrow flies above all of the others, and Harold falls to the ground. A Norman seizes his chance. Taking his axe, he hits him on the head and the thigh, and the last king of the Anglo-Saxons falls into the margins and out of sight. The English flee, and then the scavengers start to raid the dead for battle gear. One of them finds a rather nice little brooch in twisted gold. Rather lovely, that, still attached to a piece of cloth. Lefwin's mother, with pursed lips and an anxious brow, fastened this to her son's cloak that very morning. But the scavengers, they have no morals. I mean, it's recycling, it's good for the environment. Besides which, he's not got any shoulders to pin it to, has he? And that's how the tapestry ends, ripped away at that point. Perhaps, if we continued, we would see the corpses lying on the battlefields, covered slowly with weeds. Perhaps nettles grow through between the shattered shield bosses and the broken spears. Maybe a chamomile plant will find its home in a sunny spot in an upturned Norman helmet. And perhaps, after this has passed out of memory, 2 farmers, with their plough and their seeds, will make their way across the rough ground, sowing. There were 3 men who came out of the west, their fortunes for to try, and these 3 men made a solemn vow. King! howls Hawk. Get away with you! Get away! Get away! Get away! And he flies up, out of the tapestry, off of the yellowing linen with the frayed edges, and out into the blue. And as he goes, he hears the last bits of the farmer's song. John Barleycorn must die.